So there we
Here
have
we
it. Dave
go.
is slow today. Dave is slow today. Good morning,
Yes,
Dave. How are you?
I left at the last minute to turn on my
Morning.
computer, and then the computer decided it's going to take a slow time. It's going to take its time this morning.
Yeah. What I hate about
Of
this is
course
like
it
well,
did.
you got a limited time, and from to do something, you got a deadline you're coming up on, and it's at that moment your computer decides, hey man, I'm doing that update.
You know,
15 minutes later, when you're 10
every
minutes
time,
late.
or you've timed it just perfect to leave the house to go to where you're going, and you get a phone call, but it's an
Yeah,
important one, and then as soon as you hang up, you get another one, and
yeah,
you haven't had anyone phone you for a week, but you get two
all at
right as
once.
you're
Yeah,
leaving.
yeah. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Rick. Okay, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. We're live every morning, talking about the news and how it impacts the Niagara Falls area. So listen, become a regular listener, and it's now 1 week before Christmas. So
And
we
truthfully, I tell you, if you become a regular witness, a regular listener, all your dreams will come true.
all of Dave's dreams will come true.
Well, you got to entice people. You gotta lie to them. You know what I mean? We can't tell them we're going to
Well,
lie to them about the news or exaggerate the news. I mean, that's already taken. Fox and CNN already do that. So we can't exaggerate the
yeah,
news, but we can lie about the consequences of watching us, meaning that your life will never be better.
yeah. Well, you see, you know what they say. You can like us and subscribe on Facebook at Talking Niagara page, right? And you can also like and subscribe at my YouTube channel, right? So Peter Giblett YouTube channel.
Yes, you
So
can get an 8x10 glossy of me with my autograph on it for a limited time
oh,
only,
we can,
$10
I
each.
think we should give them. I think we should give them away to the first 100 new subscribers.
I think so, so they can throw darts at him.
Yeah, probably.
They
Yeah.
can put them on their dartboard if they don't like our opinions.
Hey,
Right? And
well, I tell you what, we can have three-sided paper. One side can have Dave's picture on it. The other side can have Donald Trump's picture on it, and the other side can have Mark Carney's picture on it. So pick the picture. Pick the picture you want to throw darts at. How
yeah,
about
quite
that?
right.
You know? Yeah. All right. So the Bondi Beach attack has left the local Jews here in the Niagara region very nervous.
And I don't blame them. They're obviously to be a Jew anywhere, particularly in the Western world. Now, we see a lot of this friction happening, of course, between Arabs and Jews, and particularly Palestinians and Israelis. But uh, it doesn't seem to be that there's any time where Jewish people are safe, completely safe, not even in Israel or wherever they want to be. They or their own neighborhoods. We found that a kid's school, a school for kids, I think it was for a girls' school in Toronto. Somebody shot at it three
Yeah.
different times. There never is a safe time for Jews, completely safe, and unfortunately, most of that become is caused by European Christendom. It is the
Yeah.
long held and simmering hatred that Christians had towards Jews, but that has spilled over to a point where a lot of the Islamic nations now will have their problems with the Israeli state, and they are more anti-Zionist rather than anti-Jewish. the kind of anti-Semitism they're talking about here is rather complicated. Jews will always be a victim, will always be vulnerable because of the long sort of historic hatred that has been on them.
Part of Western society, part of Christendom for a long while.
Yes. And where Jews existed within the Muslim world, although they weren't always treated the best, generally speaking, they were treated better. Jews were treated better in the Muslim world than Jews were treated in the Christian world. Even Christians were treated better in the Muslim world than Muslims were treated in the Christian world. Unfortunately, this particular attack, I don't know if that's going to embolden anyone else to do this kind of thing. And it's important to distinguish this kind of anti-Semitism. This is like the Islamic extremists thinking they're fighting back against Zionism. They think if they want to equal the score. Jews are killing innocent Palestinians, so now it's time for us to kill innocent Jews. Now, I don't know how somebody ever gets that in their head.
There's no, just because a foreign nation has taken action doesn't mean you take action against the local people of similar extraction.
Yeah, Al-Qaeda and ISIS and organizations like that have been able to enrage certain people and turn them into vicious animals. And
but again, also those people enrage, ISIS, etc., enrage the opposite, if you like, don't they? They also enrage people who are greatly become Islamophobic because of ISIS and the like.
Yeah, that's true too. You see, in the particular incident in Australia, it was actually a Muslim man who disarmed the Muslim radical.
Yeah.
And he got his arm shot up for it. And that only complicates the story, because in what the press likes to do, or other media people, they like to paint the picture of good, bad, good, bad. You're with us, you're against us. Muslims bad, Christians good. Muslims bad, Jews good. Jews bad, Christians good, kind of thing. They like to paint the picture of a good, bad thing. This really doesn't apply.
Life is not that straightforward.
No, it isn't. It's terrible, actually. What's happening here now? My biggest fear is not for the radicalized Muslim, like an ISIS radicalized guy. They will come and go. When all this is all in a generation or so, we could see this all go away. When just like anarchism and nihilism kind of went away 150 years ago or so. But what I still worry about mostly is the entrenched anti-Semitism among the Western world. That to me is more of an issue overall than the one, the radical Muslim thing. Because I think the radical Muslim thing is a kind of a phase, a kind of a little bit of a cancer on the Muslim faith that somehow got out of control. Kind of like I don't know what else to compare it to right now, but my biggest worry is the continuous undercurrent of anti-Semitism in the West, because I don't know, that doesn't seem to have gone away at all. And that same person that's an anti-Semite that will shoot up a mosque will also shoot up a synagogue.
And this is actually, Rick is painting it in a way. Dave is good, Peter is better type thing, right? That's the kind of thing we're seeing here, right?
Oh, no Christmas card for him.
Well,
yes, it's very difficult. Like I've said, and if you there's an article attached to this one, they link to it, where an opinion guy goes around and well, he's a Jewish guy, it seems by his name anyway, and he goes around and he tries to equate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. It's a yes, no. If you're an anti-Zionist, you're automatically an anti-Semite. And what if you are opposed to Zionism? Does that make you automatically an anti-Zionist?
That's a very complex question, because if you're opposed to Zionism, that basically means Zionism is basically that requirement that Jews have their own homeland. It doesn't mean you're anti-Jewish if you don't believe in a Jewish homeland.
Well, no. As a matter of fact, many Jews don't believe. Some of the Orthodox Jews don't believe God wants them to have a homeland.
Yeah,
and so, but typically speaking, here, the land that the Israeli state is now built on was land very few Jews lived on until Zionism began in 1897.
Yeah.
Around 1900, 5% of what is now Israel and Palestine, 5% was Jewish. About 75% was Muslim Arab, and about 20% was Christian Arab. And we talked about yesterday how a Christian Palestinian village was being sort of mowed down by so-called archaeologists. That's why they had to cut down their olive trees. That's why they had to push them off their land. It was a big lie, of course. Well, and that's the kind of thing that enrages people. And I don't, of course, but you begin to enrage people, then you attract the nutters. And the nutcases are the ones that do take it to extremes.
Well, I remember having a conversation a long time ago with a Jewish person in London, and I asked them the question. So, would you ever see yourself going to Israel? And they said, no, I'm British.
Yeah, a lot of Jews have dual citizenship. They don't live in Israel. They may never even hardly ever go there, but they hold a citizenship, which gives them the right to vote. And that was the idea of the Israeli state. It was to get as many Jewish people around the world to get citizenship. Therefore, when there is an election, they can overwhelm any opposition to them. Particularly, like for instance, there are 20% of Israel that are Palestinians.
Yeah, but that particular gentleman,
about 10% of that is Christian Palestinian, and about 10% of that is Muslim Palestinian.
But that gentleman's not even interested in going to Israel or even being part of anything to do with Israel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I would love to go to Israel just for the history of the place.
I wouldn't be going right now, but still, that's another question.
No, I wouldn't go right now either. But it would upset me very much to see how they sort of annihilate the Palestinian towns and villages that were there, change the names of cities, use things like archaeology to push people off their land, and never bring any kind of real consequences to the settler movement that destroys people's cars, beat people up, even shoot them.
Anyway, back to local attacks here.
Yeah, so but they're all connected, you see, and the question of anti-Semitism is a very it's not the same. The Israeli or the Jewish Arab sort of hatred that they have back and forth with them, it isn't really the kind of like the same that European anti-Semitism is, or European Islamophobia. I think the Islamophobia Jews in Israel have is different from the kind of Islamophobia
Probably,
that exists here, same as the anti-Semitism among the Muslim groups there against Israel is different. It means different things to them because, as I said before, up until Zionism, Jews and Christians were treated reasonably tolerant in the Muslim world compared to how Jews and Muslims were treated in the Western world.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think it's a horrible thing. No Jew will ever be totally safe. I'm afraid to say that. That's to me, that is the
and
truth.
I fear that. I do fear that
always
as well.
a nutter out there.
Yeah, I do fear that as well. That's one of the problems that we face is that any person should be perfectly safe walking down the street at any time of the day or night, and it shouldn't matter their religion, it shouldn't matter their sex, it shouldn't matter anything. They should be perfectly safe. But as we know, we end up with, oh, you're a Jew, therefore I'm going to attack you. Oh, you're a Muslim, therefore I'm going to attack you. Oh, you're a woman, therefore I'm going to rape you, type thing, right? All of those influences in society have been a negative in our society. And that sort of stuff is all getting worse.
Well, then you have the situations where you've got a guy like Nick Fuentes, and he's a right winger, and he's bringing up issues about how what he calls this is what he says is international Jewry manipulating the governments of the West and so on. I haven't heard much of him, but I heard him say something like that. I'm really not too interested in the guy.
That's the same type of argument.
He is getting media attention, and how much is that affecting? If he does bring up, let's say, how AIPAC manipulates or has a great deal of power in American politics, will that generate anti-Semitism, or will it generate more of a controlled response? Hey, that shouldn't happen, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, that's the same type of argument that Adolf Hitler used in the 30s, wasn't it?
How so?
Well, insofar as Jews controlling the world economy.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a consistent thing going. I mean, Henry Ford did the same thing. And then when you get, and of course, you get certain people like the Rothschilds, I think, who pretty much saved Britain from Napoleon, but then it can turn on itself and say, see how powerful they are, those Jewish people, and but when you talk about, my biggest worry here is when you talk about something like AIPAC and the kind of outsized power and control they have in the government, and most of this information comes from Jewish scholars too. That's that has to be pointed out, and so when that comes up, unfortunately, if you were to say that a certain Christian faction had outsized power in the government by their lobbying efforts, you would be annoyed and angry and say that shouldn't happen. Unfortunately, if it's a Jewish group that's doing like the AIPAC, then there's always that risk that anti-Semitism thing will be attached to it, rather than saying AIPAC should not have the power it does. And there's always that some person will say, well, it's because they're Jews and they're evil and all that. I don't know. This is a long held belief that we've had in the West, and I can't see it ending anytime soon. How do you then begin to say, well, I don't like what Zionism has done to the Middle East, and I don't like what what APEC is doing, the outsized power it has, lobby group has, and then someone's going to turn around and point to you and say you're an anti-Semite.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on. Gaza has the highest number of child amputees per capita in modern history.
Yeah, if you open that article, it's hard to get to
that article. Unfortunately, it was out by Al Jazeera, is gone because it was a daily briefing article, but it was still possible to find this information. It's been published by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, particularly their branch that's dealing with Palestinian refugees in the Near East.
The sort of silver lining in the whole article, though, they had a little video there where the Palestinian children are actually starting to get more of a normalized life. The little children that says, well, we went through the war. Imagine a child telling you that, now that we've gone through the war, now we can see the cinema. So what they got is a sort of a mobile screen, and they put it up and outside and wait till it gets dark, and then they play movies for the children. Yeah. And they're all outside in among the rubble. And there are people that looks like they're like clowns or something like that, trying to entertain the kids and but the article title, like, we already know that there's been an incredible amount of amputees in the world. It's another reason why Israel doesn't want outside journalists to get in there, because if they start going around, they're going to find all kinds of kids with no arms and no legs, or missing arms and legs, or blinded, and there's going to be thousands of them, and journalists go in there and see what kind of how the Israelis really overdid it. The IDF really overdid it.
Well, there was another associated thing with this, by the way, Dave, is apparently alongside the numbers of amputees that are out there in the child amputees, they're also looking in, believe it or not, in Gaza, is about the World Center of adaptive limbs for children.
Well, it's going to be, isn't it? This is a perfect place to now go and work on how best to make limbs for children going forward. It's that could be the silver lining too, because children anytime in the future, like an ordinary kid that might lose his arm in a farm accident in Indonesia, may benefit from what they discover making limbs for these Gazan children later on.
And if you think about it, that's got a special situation, because if you lost your arm, not that I wish that at all, and you had a replacement limb, you just got one for life, right? That's it. You only need the one, and it will last you the rest of your life. A child who's like 6 or 7 needs to have a new leg every 2 years.
Yes. I know a person who was born without one of her arms, and she's had prosthesis her whole life, kind of thing. And they pretty much used her as sort of a model of putting them on, putting more prosthesis on, studying them and everything like that. As a matter of fact, she said at one time she just felt so overwhelmed that a female doctor, obviously it had to be a female doctor, because they could see that it was kind of overwhelming for her as a child, and said, gentlemen, kind of thing, this is a child, right? Let's treat her like a child. She has feelings and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, of course.
She's just some model you're strapping prosthesis on.
And it's tough. It's tough for anybody who's going through that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So in any case, this is going to be a very, very terrible war. We don't expect that the journalists are going to get there anytime soon, and the kind of story is going to be perverted as hard as it can by monsters like Netanyahu. I don't know. Like, it's just, I don't even know where this guy came from, but there is too many violent men out there on both sides of this issue, and too many of them are allowed to operate. Got to get rid of a guy like Bibi Netanyahu, because his goal is to get rid of the Palestinians and make a bigger Israeli state. That's it. And that's why the settler movement is never held accountable for the crimes that they commit against Palestinian villagers.
Yeah.
One Palestinian villager throws a stone at an armored vehicle, and he's met with 3 bullets in the chest.
Yeah.
And if a guy throws a stone and gets captured, he gets thrown in jail, even if he's 12 years old. It's a brutal apartheid system. And if I say that, then someone's going to tell me I'm an anti-Semite. That kind of thing.
Yeah. You're just trying. I know that you're just trying to basically look at all sides of the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And we have to have sympathy for those that are innocent, the people. But in this case, like, both sides see the others as there's no one innocent on the other side of that line.
Yeah.
All Israelis are bloodthirsty murderers of Palestinians, and all Palestinians on the other side are bloodthirsty murderers of Jews. And I posted on my Facebook a long time ago what Jewish media people had said about what was happening after the 1967 war, that the oppressor will murder, then the oppressed will murder back, and then it will be a continual cycle of murder. The oppressed comes in and oppresses. The oppressed gets fights back and murders, and then the oppressor murders back, and then it happens again. The oppressed then murders, and it just goes on like this. This was predicted in 1967 by notable Israelis and one Palestinian. I think it was about a dozen notable Israelis at the time, and one Palestinian intellectual, I think it was. And that's the thing they came up with. That's what's going to happen, and that's exactly what has happened. You get this tit for tat, and each pointing the finger at the other.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So Ontario is basically saying they want to bring more attractions to Niagara with a multi-billion-dollar plan.
Yeah, it's a bit of a relief to talk about Niagara Falls and what they're doing now. It's a very, very heavy topic, all that other stuff that we were talking about. So I'm glad we're switching to this. It's a bit of a relief,
Well, I thought we needed some relief.
Yes, and it's about Niagara Falls too. So what does everybody out there think? Do they think that bringing a big, huge amusement park in there sends animals? Without the animals, is that the way we should be going?
We need that. We need that.
Do you think so? She thinks kind of like a Canada's Wonderland type of thing there?
Yeah, I think we do. We need to change. We need to change that over from being what it was, being the water park, etc., to being to being a local Canada's Wonderland. Yes, switch it. All right.
Yeah. So you think when you think
I've said this right from the outset. I'm glad somebody's listening.
Yes, and they've actually somewhere in the article or a link to another article, they've asked the actual citizens of Niagara Falls what they think should be done, and one of the most common responses is change it into an amusement park.
Yeah,
but if you're a father and a mother and you take your family anywhere, right? So what happens to your kids? They can look at the falls for just so long. They can look at
absolutely,
that kind of thing. So what you want to do is have fun for your kids, right? And fun means going to an amusement park. There'll be a swim pad there. There'll be rides there. There'll be all kinds of things for the children to do to have some fun.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole point about that is that, for a kid, for a 5-year-old coming to Niagara Falls, unless they're particularly interested in waterfalls, if they were a waterfall nutcase, they'd probably be exploring every avenue of Niagara Falls. But the average kid who comes along here goes, yeah, great, mum. What about me? I'm bored. And that's 10 minutes out, 10 minutes after arriving, right?
Well, kids need to run around.
Yeah,
Basically, they need a place to kind of run around and get rid of their energy.
yeah.
And like swim parks or slides where slides that go into the water, water slides that go
Yeah,
into the water
yeah.
parks, especially in the summertime. But other things that happen in amusement parks, you can go on rides and do all kinds of activities. I think that would be great because that would be a great thing for the average family to do. My biggest problem with it is we're being a tourist town. We'll gouge them for the very last cent they could possibly get. They'll grab mom and dad and shake them upside down until they get every dime out of
Yeah,
them.
but again, we've got a bad reputation for doing precisely that. But I think that having reopening, having a Marineland replacement that is an amusement park gives people a days something to do for the day.
Yeah, but I would like to see it. Like the attitude is get as much money as you can. Like push it to the limit. They're going to pay for it. I think, and there'll always be people that will pay. That leaves too many people out, though. I think, and we're talking about
Yeah, but we should be
kinds of
looking.
things about housing, for instance, and affordable housing and people's affordability and how taxes
Well,
and food
I
prices
and
and
I
all that
agree.
come down on them. I think in
I
this
agree.
particular case, you should have reasonably priced amusements. I
Well, and
think that
reasonably
would pay
priced.
more dividends in the end because that mom and dad will come 3 times instead of once if they
Yeah,
think they're
exactly.
not being clipped.
Well, one of the good things that they had at Marineland was that you could buy a season pass. So I don't know what the prices were, and it's a long time since I've known what the prices were. But let's say your day pass was $50 and your season pass was $60. Well, that was a bargain right there and then, right? So that meant you could come back 3 or 4 times in the year, and for just a little bit more to Marineland and see it again and again and again. Right?
Yeah,
We can have
you,
that
you could
sort of
do
thing.
you could do something like that, of
Yeah,
course. But it's my biggest worry is they're going to be like instead of having a nice amusement park for kids and making good money doing that, they're going to be the Stromboli effect. How much can I rip off these
yeah.
people? How
No,
much
this
can I
has
make
been a
them pay?
problem. This has been a problem of Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls needs to adopt an attitude of you know, uh, we are the place you want to come back to every year. In uh, uh, Basically, we want to be the South End of Ontario, and Southend is a town in Essex in England where a lot of the London people used to go back year after year after year. We're going off on vacation for Easter holiday. Where are you going? Southend on Sea, right? So, and every year they would go back to Southend on Sea. These families, right?
Yeah.
That's what we need from Niagara Falls. We need people here, the people who come, particularly the people from Ontario that come. We want to have them here come every year, every July the 1st, or every August holiday weekend they come to Niagara Falls. That's what we want to encourage, not rip off Niagara.
Yeah, as I've said before, there's been an incredible amount of pressure on the average person, particularly if they're having a family, and we find the housing spike, groceries are spike, gasoline, automobiles, got the tariff problem, everything, and yet the usual business model around here is to gouge it when you can gouge.
Yeah.
And
it's wrong.
so there is no consideration for the well-being of the customer. If they can't afford it, tough. We'll make enough anyway. I think there should be a conscious effort to keep prices reasonable to attract people to be repeat visitors.
Yeah.
You can see if you don't think you're getting ripped off, it is reasonable for you to bring your family down here and then go to the amusement park that we expect may happen at Marineland. You'll get repeat customers all over. What is doesn't really make sense to me. Vegas right now, of course, we got a lot of casinos, and Vegas right now is in a lot of trouble because they pandered to the wealthier clientele. And now that wealthier clientele is limited, and they did not develop the business of attracting everyone in every category. They concentrated only on the people that had the most
on the
money,
high rollers.
Yeah, and kind of left aside all the rest. Well, what they found now is they could have exploited they could have of course exploited the wealthy, but have also had industry to exploit the middle class type. And you find if you go to Southeast Asia, you'll find that there is everything. You can get accommodations if you're a student and you're 3 students to a room because that's all you can afford.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Or you can get the opulence you want. But most everybody just goes around and then finds what they can afford. So the rich person that goes to Siem Reap to see Angkor Wat, the poor person, the poor traveler could go too.
Yeah, and we need to accommodate everybody. We've shut campgrounds in the last few years. Now, I know that probably we've ended up with there's been a change in demographic, but we need ironically, we need customers who are coming in and staying in bed and breakfast, including Airbnbs. We need people who are staying in vacation rentals. And I agree with Mike's argument about there are too many of them. There need to be a limited number and they need to be handled properly. And but there's also hotels, there's also guest houses, there's also motels. And all of those have their own distinct markets, and we need to be basically accommodating all of those markets. And a place like Marineland or a new Marineland will do that. And then we can't call it Marineland anymore. We'd have to call it something else because it's not marine, right?
Yeah, you could call it anything you want. I would stay away from Disney themed stuff. Although I don't know, maybe that is a good idea, but
well, what Rick says is we also need free stuff.
What?
We also need more free stuff. Free stuff, right?
I suppose so. I didn't really think it because when you start getting free, that means somebody's paying for it. So if you're giving tourists free stuff, somebody's paying for it. Taxpayers.
Well, you can walk. Whatever. You can walk down the falls. Other than parking, you can take a nice walk down the falls, and it doesn't cost you a penny. Right?
Yeah. That's as a matter of fact, it. When I was working down at Clifton Hill, an American lady came up to me and she said, "How much does it cost to go see the falls?" And I said, "Lady, they're right over there. You mean I don't have to pay to go in there?" I said, "Lady, no, it's just open. Just walk over there, look at them." She was kind of she felt she was doing something wrong, and I said, "No, this part's off. There's no entrance fee to see the falls."
Well, and of course, whoever pays for the free stuff is taxpayers. But in fact, actually, we get the money back. We get the money back into our economy locally here because what happens is there's the accommodation tax that is collected by the local, hotels and bed and breakfasts and the things like that. We also get that when people stay locally, right, the hotel owners, etc., spend in our local economy, as do bed and breakfast owners spend in our local economy. And all of the people bring money to them, So if you're spending, typically the thing is, if you're spending $100 on somewhere to stay for the night, you're probably going to spend $300 on staying, being here in Niagara Falls.
Yes. So, to get back to the amusement park, though, who knows what's going to happen up there?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about residential properties going up there. That might be a thing. But
no, I don't like that. I don't like that. I want it to stay tourist commercial. I want us to bring something like, bring a Canada's Wonderland here, a theme park.
Well, there's a lot of effort by what appears to be effort by the Ford government to expand the sort of entertainment aspect of Niagara Falls. They want to expand casinos and stuff like that. I have never been too hip on casinos because I believe that there's a certain segment of the population that is exploited, and I think there's a certain amount of the population that is exploitable, and that casinos rely on them for a certain amount of the revenue, and those are, of course, problem gamblers. It's like the guy that owns a local bar, and he knows the problem drinkers are going to come in every day. He kind of relies on that, and I think the casinos rely on the problem.
And one of the things, by the way, also remember under discussion right now are 2 further casinos in our area, one in Thorold and one in St. Catharines.
Yeah, but I think what Doug Ford's thinking of is more here. Well, I suppose the Niagara region in general, but he does want to make this an entertainment sort of superpower kind of thing, a super zone of entertainment where you have easy transportation to get here. You've got gambling. You exploit the resources of wine, food kind of thing. Plus, of course, Niagara Falls itself is an attraction. So he's sort of envisioned a much larger tourist attraction that lasts longer. To have it sort of pinned to casinos is a problem for me. But casinos do make money, but sometimes it's temporary. Like you see, there's a casino across the river, the Six Nations casino there. How many casinos can be built, and how many of them can be profitable?
Well, in fact, there's a kind of local tour of casinos here in Niagara Falls where people go from the Falls View to the Casino Niagara and across the river to the Seneca and back again.
The one in Buffalo too, right? So
but those 3 are kind of short taxi rides away from one another.
Yeah, and my big issue with putting too much of the tourist revenue on casinos is a mistake, but I'm not so sure. And when I think about it, it's the sort of the morality and ethics that come here and that bothers me about that, the exploitivity of problem gamblers.
Yeah.
So as a business case, I can't really speak to it too well. But is it important to our tourism? I would rather our tourism be more family based, basically. But anyway, that's not for me to decide.
I think that's amusement park is part of family based tourism.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be.
Right. Okay, moving on. Niagara bound QEW at Hamilton is got some problem. Is closed tonight, 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. What's confusing about this is that they're basically saying one paragraph they're saying 2 left lanes on the QEW bound will be QEW Niagara bound will be closed on Thursday, December 18th until 9 p.m. till Friday, December 19th at 6 a.m. And then they say all lanes will be closed on Thursday. I think they mean all lanes will be closed on Friday. I think they got it wrong. I think the QEW's left lanes Niagara bound tonight, and all lanes Niagara bound tomorrow.
Yes. So keep an eye. This is a time of year when people travel back and forth and for a holiday, to visit family, to go to get-togethers and all kinds of things like of that kind. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on any kind of slowdowns that will be in that will slow you down in traffic and so on. So that's good warning. Keep aware of what's happening on. If you're making plans and you want to get to visit family or friends for a Christmas get together, just keep in mind what's happening on the roads.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And the next thing is Trump addressed the U.S. last night on his address to the nation. He's sending $1,776 in bonus checks to U.S. troops for Christmas.
It's a gimmick. It's a gimmick. Yeah. What's happened here is Trump's popularity has dipped rather radically. I didn't really believe that at first when they started coming up with the polls, because of course the Fox network wouldn't discuss polls that made Trump look bad, and the CNN types would over exaggerate the polls. So I just kind of stood by and listened. Apparently, though, that it is true that his popularity has plummeted significantly, even among his core followers. That has sparked a bit of excitement at the White House. So Trump did what Trump does best. He gets on TV, and I think it enhanced his position because he has that power of talking to points that the ignorant people like and don't fact check. And he has that ability to enthrall and tell people what they want to hear and that kind of thing. So I think that will slow down the loss of popularity at this particular time. But I don't know how long it will last, because when you listen to his speech, it's very typical of a Trump speech, and he tells you everything you want to hear. And I was pretty impressed that at a time when his popularity has apparently gone down, that he could rejuvenate it this way. Now, he himself has gone out and said the Republicans are not advertising enough, not getting the word out how great the economy is and how great this is and how great that is. So he gets on TV and he exaggerates and lies and sometimes tells the truth even about what the economy is.
But again, Trump promised an economic boom, yet inflation has stayed elevated and the job market has weakened, particularly in the wake of import taxes.
Well, see, he's making the argument that tariffs have saved the U.S., that because of tariffs, it brought down taxes. He's never once saying that the U.S. consumer is the one that's paying the taxes, the tariffs. Yeah. When he says that taxes have come down, his big beautiful bill, the taxes have come down. Well, that's not entirely true. So the income tax might come down, but the tariff tax went up.
Yeah.
So you're paying the same amount of money. The 700. One commenter said it's interesting that the $1,776 they're going to give to the servicemen for the 250th birthday of the United States. They say that's pretty interesting because the average family has lost $1,700, according to some statistic out there, that the average family has lost the buying power of $1,700 on average.
So, but again, this PBS writes this up and says in the wake of import taxes. So they're not talking about tariffs, they're talking about import taxes. So this is actually what the man on the street is actually paying when they're buying imported goods.
Yes, the tariff is an import tax. It's
Yeah.
another way of describing it.
Yeah.
The and we really aren't. We're not given the truth. So he knows enough not to tell the truth about certain things. When he goes after Venezuela, what is he really going after there? Yeah, they're shooting drug boats, but those boats they're shooting from Venezuela are very unlikely laden with drugs going to the United States. Most of what people have said that those are drug boats, and they're laden with drugs, more likely going to Europe and other countries in the Caribbean, because these areas supply the worldwide drug addicted sort of world. Um, um, so what is it really? So he will say that Maduro is a murderer. He's bringing in drugs into the U.S. that is poisoning our people. That's not exactly the truth. That's what he wants you to know. He's a hero. He's fighting against the evil drug lords. But is he really? Is it oil that he's really after? And that kind of thing. When he goes and says that he stopped 9 different wars, he stopped none of them. Thailand and Cambodia are still fighting. Rwanda and Congo are still fighting.
Yeah.
Those things are going on. The Gaza peace deal really hasn't come to fruition. There might be some relief there, but it's still a long way off. The Ukrainian war that was supposed to be solved by him within a day, he's turned his back on the Ukrainians who were the victims, and he's telling you, he's fixed it. So there's a lot of mistruths, and when it gets fact checked, there's of course it's full of holes, and every politician lies, of course, but Trump's doing a real doozy here. But he has the power of persuasion. So I think by addressing the public and telling the other Republicans that you're not advertising, you're not bringing home the message that we're doing well.
Well, it means to me,
come down.
It means to me that the Republicans are not believing his message.
Well, the Republicans in the House and the Senate, who are afraid of him, will mimic his comments. One of the things they like, the Republicans, I've noticed, they like to bring up eggs, how much eggs have come down, but almost no one mentions the fact that the eggs spiked in a certain period of time because of bird flu, and they had to cull a lot of the flocks, the laying flocks. That was going to be a temporary inflated price for eggs because of the bird flu, and it was going to have a beginning and an end. And yet they go to they say, okay, well, eggs have come down 82%. Well, if they were going to come down anyway, because once the flu was finished, things were going to normalize. It's this kind of thing. Yeah, that's true. Eggs came down 82%, but why were they so high in the first place? And that's not. So they take credit for the lower price of eggs, but don't point out that they were going to be lower anyway once the bird flu finished.
Okay, so Rick says Trump said Dave knows too much. You better unhook that brain from the internet, Dave. You're embarrassing him. You're embarrassing him.
Well, when I was listening to him, I see the astute politician there. So it's hard not to admire his ability, his persuasive ability, his if you're a fan of Trump and you had some doubts, and he comes up and he spills his junk like every president does, then you're going to be enthusiastic about him again. No one's a better salesman for Trump than Trump himself.
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, one of the things that has to be said about Trump is he is a good speaker when he's on form.
When he wants to be, and of course, the the fact checkers crawled all over this and pointed that out. But the what I see here is this very persuasive guy who's got the power to persuade, going out there and telling everybody, what are you worried about? Everything's great. Nothing's ever been better. I'm solving this and I'm solving that. Now, what is consistent in all of his complaints about people not understanding how wonderful he is because it's Biden, Biden, Biden. Oh, it was way worse than we thought.
Yeah,
remember Ludkin had said right in the very beginning, after the first quarter, he said, that's it. Now we've done it where everything is, we fixed everything in a way we're going to go, but as things haven't sorted out as well as they thought they would, then it's always Biden, 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 Biden.
Well, yeah. And that is part of the problem here is even in this speech, he's talking about the economic problem woes that we have right now, the inflation. It's all Biden's fault. Well, there's a certain point whereby, for a start, I'm not so sure that inflation is something you can pin on any individual political leader. Inflation has a particular motion of its own, and very little the actual political leaders can do about inflation. What tends to happen is it tends to be the central banks that step in and do something, and they're operating independently, like we saw with Bank of Canada. Inflation can be brought under control, but it's typically the central bank that does that. Political policy has very little effect upon inflation, and a year later to be blaming Biden about inflation is partly true, but also mainly untrue.
Mainly untrue, for sure. Now, Trump has said that his policies would bring down inflation, bring down prices.
Yeah,
that's a result of his policies. That has not borne fruit.
Yes.
The inflation level is pretty much the same a year ago that it is now, so in and around 3%, and that hasn't changed. The sweet spot, of course, is 2%, and they found it very difficult getting down to that point. And if we look at the Fed chair and their arguments on it, they have to worry about two main things: inflation, but it also has to worry about employment. So if there is a lack of employment, you might want to stimulate industry by reducing the rates, the lending rates. And but at the same time, when you do that, you inadvertently stimulate inflation. So it's a real tightrope walk. What do you then? And in this particular case, because there's new factors, there's new things in the equation, and that is basically the tariffs.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other question here is, of course, that joblessness has gone up from 4% to 4.6%. A small amount, but it is still enough to impact the economy. Job gains have been a paltry 17,000 since April.
And yeah, you do now have, because Trump fired the people who look at that stuff. He didn't like the jobs report, so he fired the person that reports on it. That's his. If he censors things, what you don't know won't hurt you, kind of thing. But there are other sources for this information.
Yeah,
I don't know when the big beautiful bill kind of kicks in next year in January. We don't know what will happen there. Maybe it will be a big stimulus to the economy and generate more revenue because of a stimulated economy, and thereby offset the incredible debt the United States has. It's pretty hard to see that that's going to happen with the tariffs, though. The whole idea of the tariffs, making tariffs high, therefore thereby making the government lots of money, but they're a tax on the American people. they keep not trying to avoid. So the tax on the American consumer is the tariff, and how that's going to stimulate the economy. And then they say, well, that will stimulate the economy because it will bring a lot more manufacturing into the United States. But as soon as the manufacturing comes into the United States, let's say it goes just like he said, the manufacturing does come into the United States, then that stuff is now made tariff free. So when you were making a tariff off of it, now you're not. Who's going to make up the difference?
Yeah, that'll impact the financial costs of the government. Yeah.
So
when
you look at it, overall picture, it really doesn't make much sense. I mean, to stimulate areas of your economy where you want to get your steel made here and your cars made here and that kind of, well, the steel particularly, you could do that. But when you don't have aluminum and you put a tariff on aluminum, that's dumb.
Yeah.
When you don't grow bananas and you put a tariff on bananas, that's dumb.
Yeah, exactly. Because it already costs to bring them here.
Yeah. Why do you want to? The people want coffee and bananas and orange juice, and you don't make enough for them.
Yeah.
And why do you want to? If you don't make it, like if you make a car, you could see that,
Yeah.
So put a tariff on a foreign car because that way it would stimulate domestic cars. But if you're not growing bananas or coffee beans, why put a tariff on it? And
there's no point in tariffing.
You're putting the burden on the consumer.
Yeah, because the average American wants to buy bananas. The average American wants to buy coffee beans, right? The average American loves their coffee, right? So you're going to just make it more expensive. Full stop. End of story.
Yeah. So there's a lot of gaps in there. But my impression overall, how Trump spoke, he still had that kind of magic persuasiveness, even though it was anybody who's been following the news or even mildly aware of what's going on in the economy and all that stuff, the economy, foreign affairs, even right down to the Epstein thing and so on and so forth. There was anybody that's mildly aware of that could find that there's lots and lots of holes in his argument. But if you want to hear what you want to hear, it was another good speech.
Yeah.
This may give him a bit of a boost, but I don't think it'll last as long. I think the power of Trump is kind of waning a bit because he cannot sustain the inconsistencies in his story.
All right. We're going to have to call it quits at that point anyway.
Okay. Without further ado, I bid you adieu, and do not forget Gaza. We can only hope that there really is a true peace deal there. But in effect, I think that the Israeli government is going to take this opportunity to steal half of Gaza and force the Palestinians to live even on a smaller part of that particular land. And we're going to let them do it because we got no spine. Without further ado, we bid you adieu.
All right. Bye.